career secrets as software developers and how it relates to PowerApps. You might think of yourself as a citizen developer, but really, that's just a marketing term from Microsoft. What you want to be is a software developer using PowerApps.
That's right.
And that's going to maximize your success in the field. So, guys, there's going to be a lot of nuggets of wisdom, things that we're both going to share. Some of it overlaps in both of our careers, but we're going to dispense with all the wisdom here. All right. So this is about accelerating your PowerApps journey, accelerating your career with the Power Platform. Okay. Yeah. So I'm going to move on to the next slide here. Who is this for? So you might be an aspiring freelancer. I'm going to use PowerApps to do some freelance gigs. You might want to get a PowerApps position. You might already be a developer, just looking for a faster way. That was it in my case. So I was a full stack .NET developer, and when I came across PowerApps, I'm like, wow, I could really crank out some apps. I've come across individuals that they want to start, they actually want to sell software. They didn't come out and say, I want to start a software company. They just say, I want to build an app and then I want to resell it. Okay, well, you're getting into the software industry there, right? And some of the other people that we encounter, they already have a position. Maybe it's not software developer, maybe it's not in IT, but they see the chance of becoming the office hero by providing a lot of value. If they were to create an app that will save a lot of time in the office, maybe there's a process that needs to be automated that they see an opportunity they could do in the Power Platform with Power Automate, PowerApps, or perhaps you're a business owner and you need an app that is going to help your business. And perhaps you don't have $50,000 or $100,000 to pay a software developer to write an app that you need. It's like, I'll just learn this low code, no code platform over here and write it myself. All right. So in this presentation, what you're going to learn here, you're going to learn to identify pitfalls before they happen. We're going to talk a little bit about that. What are the gaps in how you're currently learning PowerApps and how to fill those in? And what a success plan would look like for you. And right here at the beginning, I asked people to make an agreement with me here. I promise to share with you all my secrets. And all I ask for your benefit is that you take action on that. I mean, what use is listening to some people about their success, trying to impart wisdom and knowledge, and if you don't take any action, then what was the whole purpose of listening to it, right?
Right. Well, the fact that you're listening right now means that you're looking for something. So maybe some action needs to be taken, right?
Yeah. Yeah. There's something that you said to me, Kurt, a while back, and it always sticks with me.
Right. There's a point in time when you got to quit talking about it and start being about it. That's what it is.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. And Darren, I know that we're a couple slides up, but I'd like to go back to that very first slide if you don't mind.
Sure.
I just find that I think it's really important for people to think about this. I don't care. I know that you probably picked up PowerApps, but it doesn't really matter if it's PowerApps or if it's Excel or Access or whatever that you were working on. I mean, Darren, you started off, you were in Visual Basic. I was working with Pascal and C. These languages, it's all about learning the fundamentals with whatever you're working on. It's what's underneath that. So it's about developing some good practices and some good secrets. Some of these things that we're going to share today are things that we've learned over the years with almost any platform that would carry over to any platform. So I just wanted to put that out there that, if you're writing in PowerApps, then you're coding. Then you are actually a developer. And then it's good to have these fundamental skills to go into that program that you're writing with that information, right? So I just wanted to put that out there.
Even if it's low code, guess what? You're a coder.
It's still code, right?
Yeah, I mean, we're called app creators or PowerApps creators,
right?
You're writing code. Yeah.
What does low code mean? Is that like below sea level type thing, or is it is it an elevation thing? Or
I think it's more of the platform does a lot of things for you that you don't have to do manually. So if you're wondering why you're not experiencing how easy PowerApps is or how it seems like it's supposed to be, if you're wondering what are the gaps in how you're currently learning PowerApps and how to fill them in, or why you feel like there's something missing from the equation, I know I feel a little bit of like that, and whenever I pick up something brand new, something fresh, things are always difficult at first. With PowerApps, I think there's another element to it, and we're going to go over this and how you deal with those. So these problems, let's talk about why they exist. So let's talk about the typical person trying to navigate their way in learning the Power Platform. They're going it alone. You know, you see this guy on the screen. Well, he's probably staying up really late at night watching videos on YouTube. Maybe he's watching my YouTube videos.
Well, in that case, he would probably have no trouble.
Well, I think there's a little bit of a pitfall, no matter who you choose to follow. There's some missing elements there. And here I have on this. Imagine building a house. Would you ever consider building a house by yourself, Kurt?
I don't even want to think about hammering a nail by myself.
I think there's a lot of parallels between, building construction and code construction, application construction.
That's right.
You got software architects, right? But yeah, a lot of times people are just trying to go it alone, learn at their own pace. You know, try to learn alone just by picking up a book or watching a video, or relying solely on training material. So that could be a book, that could be YouTube, that could be blogs, articles. What about if you're relying on online forums or groups? You know, there's a big community out there for PowerApps. But here are the two key questions. What qualifications do they have? And do they know the best way? How would you like to spend months of this learning curve you're trying to climb up for PowerApps? Come to find out that it's not really the best way. So there are quite a few things that I was learning about PowerApps, and it took me several months of me sort of banging my head up against the wall. Maybe I'm missing something. This thing isn't working out very smoothly. Let's say me using a form. Now, there are a lot of people out there that still use forms, that are seasoned people, but hey, what about the data table? You know, trying to use the data table. You know, there are some things that just don't work as you would expect them to. You know, if you see something up there on the toolbar that you can drag down, you think, oh, yeah, I should be using this, you know. And there are things like that, and even, bigger ways, like what data source to choose. You can see that you can use Excel as a data source, and that is something I try to steer people away from. But you could spend months trying to get that thing to work and struggling around. You may not know, certain things that you're learning or picking up just really aren't the best ways. So here's a question. Why should you listen to us? What qualifications do we have, Kurt? I know myself, it was, you taught me at a community college back in 1998. Taught me Visual Basic 6 and a lot of what I know about relational data. But yeah, I've got over 20 years of experience as a software developer using the full Microsoft technology stack. VB, I've learned the C#, ASP.NET, so did web development using SQL Server as a database, as the back end. Of course, I've used a lot of front-end technologies. I really don't like front-end technologies, the stuff that's rendered in the browser, like HTML and CSS and JavaScript. I'm a published author, so if you go out to Amazon, search for Darren Neese, you'll find my .NET Nuke book. But I do have a background in teaching and mentoring. I've worked at Microsoft partners, community colleges, technical education centers, which translates over to turbocharging application development using PowerApps and teaching it. Let's look at, look at this guy.
Look at that guy.
Here we always used to call you the professor. Yeah, so you've been a developer since 86. Is that 1986?
Yeah, since way well into the last century. Yeah.
So you're one of the few people that know that ancient language, C++.
I'm a dying breed. Yeah.
Pascal. What's Pascal?
Yeah.
Cold Fusion. I always knew Cold Fusion as an editor, but you were telling me earlier that was actually a language.
It's an environment.
Yeah. So Clipper, of course, the Visual Basic, VB.NET, COBOL RPG. You told me you actually dealt with some COBOL and RPG. I took a COBOL class. But,
yeah, it's crazy because COBOL's still out there too. Even today, it's still out there. Oh. What was the thing I heard that somebody was terminally ill, so they froze themselves so that they could wait for a treatment to happen, and they woke them up 100 years later, and the guy says, "Did you got the treatment?" They said, "No, but we got some COBOL problems here." Then we heard that we had experience, so they froze it.
Oh my goodness!
COBOL's still going to be around 100 years from now, probably. It's funny. Yeah,
that's hilarious.
Yeah.
It says here you were an epic drummer from the 80s, an 80s hair band.
Epic drummer. I had hair back then. Yeah,
had hair back then.
I had hair.
Did you use hairspray before you went on stage?
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right. So I do have, what's that?
I was just going to say, and that has everything to do with what we're talking about. Obviously.
Yeah, absolutely.
It means that I'm a lot better at helping you guys in your PowerApps journey because I was an epic drummer in a hair band.
And as your intelligence increases, you get less hair, right? Your hair starts to fall out because there's yeah. So I do have some testimonials from some previous students. I have them up here on the screen. I'm not going to read them to you guys, but I have tutored and helped a lot of people through some websites that I can tutor through, like Fiverr or other means, but a lot of satisfied students that they claim that I've made a huge difference. I hear it all the time through YouTube and stuff, which I always appreciate. I never take that for granted that or hopefully don't have as big as a head to think that I'm just awesome just by myself, But I do have experience helping people with the Power Platform, with PowerApps. So let me introduce you guys to something that I call the Power Performance Accelerator Program. And a lot of times I just call it the Accelerator Program. And there's a lot of elements to this Accelerator Program that I've designed that has a lot of things built in that are going to help you out in an incredible way. So let's just jump right into this. So what you really need is the new way learning trifecta. Okay. So the Accelerator Program has a strategy built into it, good habits, and also the right learning environment. So I know just from strategy and habits, Kurt, you actually taught me those way back when you were teaching software development to us young whippersnappers back then. And could you share some of your secrets that you imparted back then that people these days just aren't getting?
Well, that's a pretty good question in there. There's a lot to be said about that, but you're right about that. I believe when I was teaching back there in the colleges, when you were coming through, I really believe that if I couldn't teach you guys anything else, it was to teach you guys good habits and good strategy. And I believe that if you have good habits and good strategy, you'll pick up the rest of it on your own. But so many people don't pick up things. Like for instance, one of the things that's just coming to my mind right now is, that we of course, this doesn't really apply totally to PowerApps yet, but it will someday. You watch. So what I'm about to say you might think, it doesn't really matter. But there's lots of different ways of doing loops, right? There's rules behind the different kinds of loops that you do. And I would specifically have students, like for instance, a for next loop. Just as an example, a for next loop, the rule is that you know that you need to use the loop and you know the exact number of times you use the loop. But so many people, and then within that, if you had, I'll see people do loops, and then I'll see breaks inside of the loops. And
you're gonna have to explain what a break is.
Right. So a break is when you exit that loop. In other words, you're supposed to
force it, right?
Yeah, right. You're forcing it out. You're forcing your way out of the loop, which tells me you don't have control of your program then. So that's one thing that I was always trying to teach is one of the habits is to always have control over your program. This is all about Beat the Beast. It's a game called Beat the Beast. And you have this electronics, this big old massive electronics, this power, and you're trying to harness this power to do one thing in one moment of time. And so being in control of your program is a big deal. And of course, I use that for next loop, but there's so many other things like documenting your code, using naming conventions within your variables, indentation practices, so many different habits. And we're going to be talking about all those things someday, somewhere within this Accelerator program. That's what we work on. We work on these habits. We talk about the secrets and why you have to do it. So, I mean, I don't know if that really answers your question, Darren, in that, but I just feel like it's so important.
Well, Kurt, there were so many things that you taught, and I remind you of them. Like, Kurt, you taught me this. Kurt, you taught me this. You're like,
yeah.
Really? I think there are, like, you've forgotten more things than some people know, you know, and sometimes I impress you with something that I do, and I'm like, Kurt, you're actually the person that taught me that. When you said this,
yeah.
Guys, it's like my whole career, I felt like I've had a little Kurt on my shoulder. So we're like, Darren, are you really proud of that code you just wrote? You know?
Right.
And
see, I believe, Darren, that's what's made you successful, though, is that you took those things. And maybe it's not that I forgot that I taught you that, but maybe I'm just surprised that you actually remembered those things, because so many people don't. You know, it's like it's very rare for me to see somebody who uses the fundamentals and the strict discipline behind their coding. You know, and I believe that's what separates the good programmers from the ones that are average bears. We call them average bears, you know. But you're right, Darren. I mean, and you did that, and I think that was a big reason why you're successful right now, is because you have that strategy and those habits. But somebody had to teach you those things. You weren't born with that knowledge. You weren't born with the knowledge, Darren. Somebody taught you, and you were just smart enough, because people pay big money for that. And that, I guess that's what we're trying to say here, is people pay big money for what we're getting ready to say here. Right?
Yeah. Some people will see something or hear it, not even think it's important. But if you listen to Kurt, he says, hey, listen, people pay big money for this.
Right.
I'm going to give you an example, Kurt, that we encountered today. We actually met with one of our Accelerator students, actually just a little while ago,
moments ago,
and we told him, like, hey, we teach a certain way in the Accelerator program, and he said, man, you made me design my program before I jumped into PowerApps. You know, that thing was looking great. It was exciting to see him to pull up. I mean, he had probably 12 pages of documentation. He had an ERD diagram. He had already started on his user stories, was already thinking about his wireframes.
Right. But to back up a little bit, Darren, this was a guy who is a lot like me, who wants to just start throwing stuff up there and just start writing the code. You know, he has this idea and he wants to put it in, just start writing the code and start making something happen. And we made him take a step back and start doing these processes. And so this was totally different than what he's normally doing, and he's seeing great success from that, I think.
Yeah. If you don't approach a project properly, what you're going to find, not at the beginning, but in the middle, you may not make it to the end of the project, to be honest. In the middle, somewhere in the middle, things will start to fall apart. Things will start to not be so great, and you're going to be wondering if you even want to work with PowerApps at all.
It's true. It's absolutely true.
So, so guys, grab a pen and paper. We've got all kinds of stuff to share in here. We wouldn't want to impart to you a lot of value by listening to this video, following along here. So you want to take some notes. Hopefully you've already started as we've already begun talking about this. But let's talk about pillar one of the program. I'd like to introduce to you guys is pitfall awareness. So anticipate points of possible failure and approach for minimal time waste. So this goes into planning, taking a step back. There is a book out there that a lot of people have heard of. It's very popular, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. One of the habits is to begin with the end in mind. And, if you can't be trusted to design a program, we won't even say system. We'll just say a little program. Maybe the little program's just got 1 or 2 screens and PowerApps. And if you can't be trusted to design it or put a little bit of forethought into it, can you really be trusted? Do you really have the time to create the app if you're not going to actually gather the requirements properly, define the application, know exactly where you go? Can you imagine somebody, trying to build an on-ramp to an interstate and they don't have a blueprint? They're like, oh, well, just bring in the concrete truck. We'll just start pouring it right here.
True.
Well, what an absolute mess, and even the simplest application that you build that you might think is just a 1 or 2 screen application turns into 12 screens very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Have you found that to be true as well, Kurt?
Absolutely. I also see another dynamic to that, and that is that not just with the way that you approach programming, but also the programming in general, the actual writing of the code. We have encountered many times we'll be in the middle of solving a problem, and the way you code, or the I guess the coding pattern that you're using may not work in a certain process. And you and I have got the experience to know those things, and we can help people through there before we even go into that, So I don't know if that makes sense or not, but the actual patterns of coding can actually be a pitfall. And we know those, we've been through these enough to know, to be able to help people through that. Yeah.
Yeah. I remember signing up for the computer the program at the college that I enrolled. The very first class they had me take was not, hey, this is how you write code. No, it was logic. Taught us how to create a flow chart, what a flow chart is for. They taught a concept called pseudocode.
Yeah.
And because it takes a lot less time to create a design than it does to actually sit there and write out the code. And a lot of times the code and all the screens and everything that goes in and out of the program, you got Power Automate flows, you've got a Dataverse table over here, maybe a SQL Server. If you can't sketch it out and you can't understand it at that level, how will you expect to fully understand it through and through as you're building the app?
It's true.
So important. Moving on to pillar number 2, plan for success. So adopt the right mindset, have a strategy plan, and start with the end in mind. So Kurt, actually, what was it, last week? We actually recorded a whole module on the proper mindset and why that mindset and attitude is so important, and how it sort of casts either a light or a shadow over what you're about to take on, what you're about to approach with that mindset.
Yep.
So I think that's there's a lot to be said for that, and that can be applied to a lot of areas of life, as your approach, your mindset, your perspective.
Yep.
Something that I would say, if you're, as you're building your first application and you think about heading towards your eventual goal of getting a job, becoming a freelancer, becoming an office hero. Okay, that might come in the form of not just one application. It might come in the form of 2 or 3 applications.
Yep.
That you're going to have to build in a proper way, with the proper mindset, with the proper attitude, proper tools, proper teaching. Okay. And what you need to do is build yourself a portfolio. A portfolio, when you go to a job interview, I know with coding interviews, sometimes I'm asked a question years ago, and there's a reason why this type of questioning stopped. They would ask me, okay, well, describe how polymorphism is achieved with C#, or explain how you've used stored procedures within SQL Server, and just these weird technical questions, just to sort of like get a pulse on where you're at in your skill level and your knowledge. What I do to any type of gig job that I were to go for here in the last 3 to 5 years is I go in with my portfolio, and I say, here's an app I did. It did this and that. Here's the screenshots. This is my database diagram. This is my all the workflows that the application handled, and there's just no doubt in their mind that I know what I'm talking about. and to ask me silly questions like, oh, what does the filter function do? Describe why you would want to use a patch function, that type of stuff. Typically, instead of those questions, I get asked, hey, when can you start? We need this done really quick. Right. So is there anything that you can add to that, Kurt? Anything about mindset? Anything about approaching a certain challenging things?
A lot of times when you're getting into the application development and you're not the one that's in charge of the operation, you're going to be sitting in a meeting, and maybe several meetings, and the person who has a strategy, when they're walking into that meeting, they already have that strategy. They're probably going to be the one that's controlling the meeting, because they're going to, even if you don't have control of the meeting, you'll be the one controlling the meeting, because ultimately they're going to be asking questions of how this is going to happen, or why this is going to happen. And you're going to have a strategy in place, and you're not going to be distracted by all the different things that are going on, and you'll just be able to stay right focused on the actual plan that you have in your mind. And you're going to say, okay, well, this is how we have to make this thing fit. We have to make it fit into this strategy right here. Because a lot of times in those meetings, somebody's looking for that strategy. Somebody's looking for that leadership. And when you walk in there with a strategy, you're already going to be that guy, or that person, I should say. So I think that that's a really important thing, is to have a strategy plan. Plus, it'll help you stay focused when you're in the middle of that thing. Oftentimes distractions happen, and you can get if you get stuck in a problem, you get sideways in a problem, you can't get out of it. You can lose the whole focus of what you're trying to get done. So if you have your strategy, it helps you keep going.
That's good. I like that.
Yeah.
All right. Pillar number 3, validation from a mentor. So you could be doing something and going down a certain direction. You need some feedback. And Kurt, this is actually something that I got a lot of this stuff actually from learning from you. You'd give us assignments, we would do the work, you'd have us turn it in, and you'd give us feedback on that. And even when you helped me get my first job working beside you, there were some times like, Kurt, look at the screen, what I did here, and you look at it and like, why did you do it that way? Or you'd say, did you think about doing it this way? Because I could be all proud of something I did, like, oh man, this is the greatest thing, I've just written the best application. But a mentor comes along and said, well, this is the problem you're going to have with that. The better way is to do it this way. Somebody's got all that experience, and that, you can bounce the ideas off of a mentor, get the feedback. They can remind you to do proper things at the appropriate time. So one of our Accelerator students that we met with, that we spoke about, he showed us his documentation. He showed us his ERD diagram. I'm like, well, how are your screen wireframes coming along? Where's your user stories at? Because when you do each of these things that I lay out for everybody to do, these are the steps that we'll do methodically. This part, then we'll do this part. Oh, do you want to jump in and do PowerApps? Hold on, you don't understand your project. You just go back to the stakeholders, go back to the users, and ask them, did these set of values change at all? Can a person be a part of or be able to rent multiple properties, or can one property be rented out from multiple tenants? Have you gotten that answer? If you had done all these individual things, you would have thought to ask them, and you wouldn't even be here. You would have already had that in there. What were we about to say?
Well, I just identified with this pillar. When I was learning how to program, I taught myself how to program. And for years I was writing code, but I didn't know what made a good programmer, what made a good program. And I went to school. When I went to school because I wanted to know how a professional programmed. What was the right way to doing it, But when you're by yourself out there in the world, you don't have validation. You don't know what's right and what's wrong, So I think it's so important to learn, what did I do right in this? What did I do wrong in this? Also, sometimes we've talked about this in programming. There is no middle. You are either the worst thing, you don't deserve to be programming, or you're a hero almost at God level, and right. So it's like there's no in between in that, right? So sometimes, it's good to have some grounding from somebody, and it's also good to be getting picked up. Because sometimes you beat yourself up so hard that you're your own worst enemy and you can't get yourself out of it and you just want to give up and quit. So it really helps to have somebody in there that says, yeah, you know what, Darren, you messed this up, but man, you did this really good. You did this right. You were on top of this one right here, So, it's not all bad, right? Somebody told me in life, nothing is ever as bad as you think it is, and it's never as good as you think it is either. So, and so that's what's really good about that validation. I think that was my uncle that told me that, by the
way. While you were talking, it made me think of this thing that I actually posted probably a month ago, and it's so true, which is the 2 states of every programmer. I mean, PowerApps creator, which is, I think this was something from an old Atari game where this guy was like doing all these technology type of things. I can't remember what game that was. Or you're an awesome rock star, or I have no idea what I'm doing.
Sometimes I think that dog knows more than I did.
Oh man, look at that old keyboard. Yeah. So you'll find out that that's actually true. That you think. Let's say you learn everything there is to know about PowerApps. You get all certified. You get yourself a job. You're out there, and there are some things that come up. And what's that?
Right. So Darren, there's one other thing I wanted to say about that. But that validation only matters from people that you think that you would respect to have that, right? So you got to have credentials. I think one of the slides you had was, well, who's doing the talking? Who are you looking? Who are you getting your information from, right? So it's really important. See, when I was teaching college, you guys had my respect because even over the other instructors in the college, because most of those instructors never wrote programs in the real world. They just sat in academia and they were teaching. But when I came in at night, I was programming for DoD and I was writing software for DoD. And so I come in and say, hey guys, this is how we do it in the real world. And you guys latched onto that because you respected that because I was doing what you guys wanted to be doing. So that's where that comes from. And I think that's where what you and I have we have that right now because we've been doing this for so long. We already know how to do this. We've been doing it. And so when we come in with those credentials. It's not just about having the piece of paper or the certifications. It's about we've actually seen this stuff. We know what it looks like and it doesn't scare us. And so we can walk in there and we can tell when you're getting validation from us one way or the other. If it's wrong, you can believe it's wrong. And if it's right, you're doing a good job. I guess it depends on who's doing the speaking, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So you learn all that to ultimately get results. And so I had a slide a few slides ago, and it showed a lot of my results or my testimonials from my students. But these are actually testimonials from business owners or people who needed apps written. So you can see examples of the type of success that I had while writing apps for the end user or the stakeholders, the people that were paying for it. So that I've been down that road, that I actually have results in the real world. I've created good applications out there that are being used, and remember the agreement that we made at the beginning of all this. Okay, if you're still here right now and you made a commitment to take action, that commitment was really to yourself and to your future.
That's right.
I would encourage us to let's have a serious chat about how you can get the guidance and the help that you need to get these results. Let's build you out a cleared roadmap so you can at least know what to focus on. So every time a student signs up in the Accelerator program, we sit down and have a full hour onboarding session, and we talk about their long-term goals, their short-term goals. Also, what are the things they're currently struggling with, when their next deadline is for whatever they're dealing with. We'd also like to talk and see if it makes sense about what it would like to work together.
Yeah.
So ultimately in life, there are always three choices.
Always three.
There's you can do things using guesswork, a lot of hard work, or you can use a proven framework, something that's tried and true, that works. And so if you think about some of the most successful people that you may know, look at these: Michael Jordan, Jeff Bezos, Steven Spielberg. What do these three have in common? What are the common denominators here? They rely on a team, and they have a proven framework that they follow. So if this sounds interesting to you and you want to hear and learn more through almost every slide here, I have the link down at the bottom, tinyurl.com/PowerApps Accelerator. And we will talk with you, and we'll let you know right away if we think that you wouldn't be a good fit. We'll let you know, or if we think you are, we'll let you know that as well. As far as in being invited to come into the Accelerator program, one of the things that I like about the Accelerator program, instead of helping thousands of people through YouTube, I create a video and a bunch of people are consuming it. Maybe they leave a comment, some people leave a like, but actually working with the individuals more on a intimate basis, and hey, show me your project, see where you're going here. Yeah. What are your frustrations? What are the blockers that you're encountering? And working with people in a small group environment, sort of like what I experienced with you, Kurt. Back in the day when you were teaching at the community college, there were so many things that you were doing that the other instructors were not. You were creating a community of people that wanted to learn, and there was sort of like this camaraderie between us students, and that you had almost an open challenge to us to come to your level. Not like, oh, I'm the big instructor and all you guys are students. Maybe one day you'll get to my level. No, you are actively trying to pull us up to your level. And you would say things like, guys, if you understand these few concepts that I'm showing you right here, you could work beside me as a software developer, doing what I do every day. And
you proved that too, didn't you?
Yeah.
You proved it was right. You were living proof that was right. Darren, I really, and I know I've said this many times, but I'm telling you, I think what you're doing with this Accelerator program is actually bridging the gap. And that's why I'm here with you, right? Is because I had that community build environment. I was kind of like the original architect of that, right? And so you brought this into this, and I really think you've done a very good job of bridging the gap between what's going on out there in University of Google or University of YouTube. That's what I like to call it, right? And the actual, there's almost like a college atmosphere within this that is not, you can't capture. It's hard to capture virtually. It's just hard. Even online classes at colleges can't capture it like we're doing right here in Accelerator. It's pretty amazing if you think about it.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Our weekly calls, and I interact with our students on a weekly basis. Yeah. It's great. It's great to see people and see the progress that they're having. A lot of these students, they come in with some faith that we'll be able to lead them in the direction they know they need to go. Yeah. But the look on their face when they realize they're actually going to reach those goals.
Right. The confidence that they have, it's the difference between being an average programmer and a great programmer. Somebody used to tell me that, and it wasn't my uncle this time, somebody used to tell me that the programming field was just overpopulated. It was crowded. There was just no room for growth in the programming or the software development field because everybody's trying to do it. But the thing of it is that there are so many average bears out there. There's so much average stuff, so much mediocrity out there. There's not a lot of greatness. And if you're great, if you're good at what you do, then you can just go down anywhere. They're going to hire you. or you can just go out there. You can almost name your price on things. I never worried about my job because I knew that if this person didn't want me to work for them, I just go down the road a little ways. They're gonna hire me. You know, I mean, you always had work because if you're good, they're gonna come after you. You know, and I guess I just want to say that this accelerator program, I think, is what is going to separate the average bears from the good programmers. I believe that.
Well, I can tell you right now, just with PowerApps, the Power Platform, the supply and demand is nowhere near, what you might perhaps think of maybe Python developers, C# developers. There's so many people out there that know these skills. But here with PowerApps, the companies are already at a disadvantage trying to find people that have these skills. There's so few that have the skills. And then to get into the spot and then be exceptional.
Right. And this is the ground level of PowerApps, really, right? What is PowerApps? What, 5 years old, maybe? How long did Visual Basic take to get developed up into till they got the VB6? It took years and years, right?
Years.
So think about the people that were on the ground level of that Visual Basic when it became a mature development platform. How strong they were. Think about what we're going to be going through with PowerApps. It's still in its infancy, maybe a toddler stage right now. You know, it's growing fast.
But even with that, Kurt, not only did you teach me, but we are teaching our Accelerator students concepts and principles that not only help them with the PowerApps, but will be timeless.
Right.
All those database concepts that you taught me, normal form and relationships between tables and the proper way of setting up indexes, that's still true. It's still true. It still holds true, and it still helps me with projects today.
Isn't that crazy?
You know?
And you did in Visual back in the 90s when you were learning Visual Basic, you couldn't even spell PowerApps yet. You didn't know. Nobody knew anything about PowerApps back then, but here it is.
I couldn't even spell ERD.
Yep. I still can't. But here we are. Look, that you're living proof. I am too. Here we are using PowerApps, but we're using the same exact principles that I learned back in the 80s. I learned back in the early 80s. I was learning these principles, and they still hold true, you know?
Stuff. So if you guys are thinking about it, go ahead and book a session with us. It's no cost to you. Just book this session, and we would love to talk to you. We've had some incredible conversations with all kinds of different people, and absolutely enjoyed getting to talk to the people that I normally wouldn't ever have the chance to talk to. Maybe, have some subscribers out there that watched me for a long time. It's a little bit, and you might, some of the students that have gotten on the calls like, oh my goodness, I feel like I'm talking to a celebrity. It's like, I sort of feel the same way talking to them. Is like, I imagine all these people that I'm talking to, and but any last thoughts, Kurt?
No, I just look forward to talking to the students or the future students, that the people that are watching this video right now. I just wonder, I'm just thinking of the walks of life that they're going to be in. The people that are watching this right now, who maybe they're already working in IT and they're just getting tired of that grind of the IT existence. They want to do something different. I look forward to talking to those kind of people. Or maybe I'm talking. Maybe somebody who's maybe they're in a production type environment, or maybe they're just don't even have a job at all. And they're just wondering what they want to do with their life. What are you going to do with your life? And I just look forward to maybe talking to these guys and giving them some direction or maybe some thoughts,
Kurt, we've talked to people inside of IT, like IT directors, networking guys. We've talked to people outside of IT. We've talked to lawyers. We've talked to dentists.
That
write their own system. I'm like, wow. And a dentist, he brought out this huge diagram of this application he wanted to build. It's like, wow, okay.
Amazing. It was amazing. Yeah.
It's just really fascinating talking to people in different countries, different walks of life, different ages. And what I've seen as they join the Accelerator program, they each have something to bring to the table, to the group. And I like to sort of bring that out. And so they get to know themselves that of the assets that they have inside that they're bringing to the table.
Yeah.
They'll bring to the table in a new job or as a freelancer. Excited about the meeting and talking with you guys. Guys, for some reason, YouTube thinks you're going to like this video next. Let's see if they're right. Or you can select this playlist, which I've selected for you based on the content you're currently watching. Guys, got to hurry. Click one of them. Otherwise, YouTube's going to autoplay some other video, which you probably don't want. Thanks.